All right. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but welcome back to Racing in the Draft recorded version, because I don't seem to have enough internet here to make the video go live. So we'll try a record, and I will try an upload. So no comments. I mean, you can leave a comment. I will have my phone with me on the way to the race if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, but good luck today. We'll make this quick and simple because, the race starts in 2.5 hours, and I'm still a half hour from the track. So, either way, we are at Martinsville for the Cookout 400 this weekend at Martinsville Speedway. Last week's winner, Denny Hamlin. Lots of controversy and fun times around Denny Hamlin in winning the Richmond race. Our optimal lineups, real quick from Richmond. First overtime race of the year. Still had Martin Truex Jr. absolutely dominating the field with 228 laps. But in the end, getting a fourth place finish after pretty much getting manhandled on the final restart by almost everybody in the field. Either way, Martin Truex Jr. dominated. Kyle Larson dominated. Other than that, nobody else really led. So it was a lot of place differential. Other than Noah Gragson kind of just holding his own, starting in 17th and finishing in 12th. So we had 2 dominators, 3 place differentials, 3 value guys. We're going to see something probably fairly similar today. Maybe not in the way of the same type of racing, because I think it's going to be extremely hard to pass. So we are going to have, it's going to be some value guys that are going to be towards the back, who make up some place differential either through maybe, some mishaps on pit road, or, we'll have a few guys that end up potentially wrecking. I mean, I think last week everybody finished the race. So yeah, it was a great race, but it was kind of lots of strategy. Same thing's going to come into play today. But either way, Cookout 400 today in Martinsville Speedway. Like I said, I'm going to kind of go through this pretty quickly. Not going into full detail like I normally do. So Martinsville is a short track in southwest Virginia, I guess. It is called the Paperclip, and as you can see from the picture, it definitely looks like a paperclip. The track length is 0.526 miles in length, 11 degrees in the turn, 400 laps today, so the same amount of laps as last week. So Dominator points will absolutely be on the table today. We want to target at least 1, if not 2 Dominators, so very similar to last week. Dominator points 280 laps coming from laps led of 100 and fast laps of 180. Other types of tracks, even though there's really not much like it, it's kind of the same as last week. We're looking at Martinsville, Richmond, Phoenix, Nashville. You can also throw in Gateway. You can throw in New Hampshire. You can throw in and the people I'm staying with has an insane cat. So anything that's flat and kind of short, heavy braking. I mean, you can almost kind of even look at some of the road courses as being some of the guys that could potentially do well. It doesn't really equate too well, but because of the heavy braking, really sharp corners in turns 1 and turns 3 through the turns, it's heavy braking. It's off throttle a lot. It's being really gentle with the throttle, getting back up onto the straightaways. And then, of course, you got guys around you. So it is a kind of a 1.5 groove racetrack. But either way, looking from the past, it's just kind of like what I've been talking about here is, it's going to be place differential and it's going to be finishing position. So the guys that are going to, kind of qualify in the top 10, 15, and then a couple of guys that come from the back or are able to hold serve. Like I said, crazy cat. And, as we can see, kind of that way, I mean, we didn't have anybody in the spring race last year that started outside the top 20. We only had 2 outside the top 20 from the fall race. Now, the fall race is 500 laps, and the spring race is 400 laps. But as you can see, the average starting position of the optimal lineup from last year's race in the spring was a starting position 9th. In the fall, it was a starting position of 15th for the optimal lineups. And we see the same thing again at the fall race. It's pretty much everybody 24th or higher. And, the spring race was a little bit different. Now, that was also the race that it started with snow on the ground. It was literally 33 degrees for the entire race. They never laid any rubber down. It was the first time they had the next-gen car on that short of a track. And lo and behold, they really kind of found out that the next-gen car does not do well on short tracks. And they've been tinkering with it. I wish they would get a softer tire. We saw great racing last night, Xfinity, other than it was kind of a wreck fest. But at least there was some tire management, some fall off, and some strategy. Practice today, we'll get to that one second. But the top 15 starting, 15 Draftkings points and their starting positions. We'll look at just the average real quick. 3 of the top 15 came from the top 5 starting spots, 2.6 and 5.2. So, literally almost 11 came from starting spots 20th or better, and that's top 15 in DraftKings points. So, yeah, we're really not targeting a whole lot of people in the back. We're gonna need to, because that's where the cheap guys are. But this qualifying yesterday was very much a lot of the really fast guys that are really good at short tracks did really well in qualifying, and the guys that were either had subpar equipment or, you can't really say it's subpar equipment. The only one with subpar is probably David Starr, who we are not targeting at all today. So, if we're looking, the 2 guys starting in the top 3 guys that I really kind of like in the top 5, Kyle Larson, Truex, Chase Elliott has also run really well here. And don't sleep on a Briscoe or a Bubba Wallace either. Bubba has run this track very well. He has won a truck race here at Martinsville. He is pretty good on this at least at Martinsville in the short track. 6 through 10. We've got Denny Hamlin, who's won here, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano. All of these are past winners. Ryan Blaney has the best average finish in Martinsville. All starting in the top 10. Alex Bowman, who's got a win here, who always seems to run well. Josh Berry, who is the short track ace, who has won an Xfinity race here, starting in the top 10. So, we've got a load of really good short track drivers starting in the top 10. And we don't have it doesn't get any easier when we go to 11 through 20. Christopher Bell, William Byron, who has won here. Tyler Reddick is not very good at short track racing, as we saw last week at Richmond. I think he ended up with an okay finish, but either way, Martinsville is kind of in the same boat. He does not typically run very well here. Now, he'll hold his own, but he's probably going to finish probably close to 19th. Ross Chastain, other than the Hail Melon, he's not really that good here, and that's why he kind of had to do the Hail Melon, was to make up a lot of positions. Brad Keselowski's won here. Kyle Busch has won here. Ty Gibbs, it's a tricky track, and Ty Gibbs is learning it. Todd Gillen runs pretty well here. Chris Buescher's really good at short tracks. Ryan Preece led a ton of laps last week. So we've got a ton of guys that are starting, mostly in the top 20, and a couple of guys in the back we might need to look at. But either way, practice speeds, qualifying speeds. We are talking about time differences of hundredths of a second between literally starting first and starting 18th. It's insane how close and tight these cars are, and it just makes for extremely hard passing. And even if you think you can try to make a pass, you can't get to the guy's bumper to move him out of the way, like we saw last night in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series on Friday night. That was the Hendrick group that I picked, and then the Joe Gibbs group. We're seeing the exact same thing, almost the same type of speeds. And, it's just so tight on speeds. It's going to be the guys that are starting up front, as long as they don't have a mechanical issue, we're probably going to finish up front. But we start with Denny Hamlin, 11,500, starting in the 8th position. He was in the second practice session, which once again, the second practice session was slower. The first practice session was faster, but then when we went to qualifying, the first group was slower. The second group was faster because they had a better setup and a better handle on the rubbered end track. I mean, once again, it's very hard to distinguish who really has what and who doesn't, because the track, and then as the afternoon progressed and the temperature started to cool, the track picked up a little bit of speed. So, if you made it into the second round of qualifying in the top 10, you had a much faster lap. Part of that was they bumped the air pressures up and down. They, tweaked the car a little bit, but, the track cooled off a little bit, and the rubber had been picked up a little bit. So it's really hard to kind of give a real good gauge other than let's look at past history. And that's something that's really, really big here. I mean, Denny Hamlin has 5 wins total here at Martinsville. In the last 5 races here at Martinsville, he's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, a 13th place average finish, and 65 Draftkings points. I mean, that's pretty spectacular, and it's definitely somebody that we should have as a potential dominator. Kyle Larson, same thing. I mean, he's starting from the pole. He was in the second practice session, but he was 16th. He was like the 3rd fastest in the second practice session. He does have a win here in the last 5 races. He's also got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 20s, an 8.4 average finish, which I think is his second best average finish. And he finished 6th here in the fall race last year. Martin Truex Jr., always pretty good here at Martinsville. 10,800, starting 4th. He was in the first practice sessions, the faster one. He was 5th in that practice on single lap, 13th in 20 lap consecutive average. He's got 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s in the last 5 races, a 12.4 average finish, so very respectable. And he's got 3 wins on his record. So Ryan Blaney, next in line here, our winner from the fall race last year, and the guy with the best average finish at Martinsville in the last 5 races, and you could probably say in the last 16 races. He's got a 5.6 average finish in the last 16 races and just got his first win last fall. So Ryan Blaney starting 9th. I mean, you wouldn't call it a whole lot of place differential, but if he can get up and finish in the top 3, he'll definitely get some place differential, and he has potential to be a dominator again. So definitely keep an eye on Ryan Blaney. If you want to go out there and try to place a bet for finishing top 5, I think that's probably a shoo-in. Christopher Bell, next in line here, 10,200, coming out of the Joe Gibbs stable. I mean, he has a win here in the last 5 races. He's got a 12.2 average finish. He finished 7th in the fall, and he's starting in 20th. His practice speeds were pretty good for the first practice session. He was 10th in single lap, 7th in 20 lap consecutive average. So, and he's got a win under his belt. So if pitch strategy does come into play, he might be able to do something a little different and sneak up and get himself a top 5, top 3, or maybe even get a win. William Byron, 2-time winner, along with Denny Hamlin. Both of those are 2-time winners. But William Byron, 9,800, starting 18th. He does have a win in that really, really cold 2022 spring race. But, I mean, other than that, he's got a 10th place average finish over the last 5 races, starting 18th. Decent amount of place differential here. And he's pretty consistent, 11.8 for his career. Finished 13th in the fall race last year. They do have the same tire combination that they had last fall, so I'm not expecting much of any fall off. So once again, the guys that start up front are probably going to stay up front unless they've got a pit road issue or mechanical issue, because all the guys up front are good. Joe Logano, 9,500, starting 6th. He was second. He was in the second practice session, and he was pretty slow, 24th, which still wasn't awful. Puts him I think 5th or 6th on practice speeds in the second group. It ended up having a pretty good qualifying lap in 6th. He's got a 1 win here in his 30 total starts, and he's got a 10.6 average finish. And in the last 5 races, it's a 5.2 average finish. So he's right there with Ryan Blaney. Penske's very fast. The Gibbs cars are fast, and the Hendrick cars are fast, which makes little to no room for anybody else to even try to get into the top 10 if you were talking about those 3 teams. Brad Keselowski, 9,200, starting 13th. Pretty good qualifying spot for Brad Keselowski because his practice speeds were Abominable. 35th in single lap speed. He did not do a 20 lap consecutive average when you had some guys that did 55 consecutive lap averages. So Brad Keselowski definitely struggled in practice a little bit. He did decent in practice. So I don't love the Brad K play here today. I've got a small amount of usage on him. I've got 5 to 10%. Ty Gibbs, $9,000, starting 15th. He was in the second practice session. He was second fastest in that practice session. Joe Gibbs, always bringing good speed here. The question is, Ty Gibbs is still kind of learning this track and learning how to drive this track. He does have a win in Xfinity, but can he pull off and get himself that first win? I don't know if today's the day for that, so I have faded off of Ty Gibbs. Chase Elliott, 8,800, does have a win here. Starting third, he was the fastest in the second group of practice cars, and he was 15th, which I think was also the fastest in the 20-lap consecutive run for that second group. He's got a 12.8 average finish. He struggled a little bit. He finished 17th in the fall race last year. Starting third, I could see fading off of Chase Elliott, but I could also see him have some ownership here. The Hinder cards are always good, and it's their 40th anniversary, so Chase Elliott's going to definitely be kind of hunting to be in that top three, if not trying to get that win. He's still looking for that elusive win that he hasn't had in a while. Chris Buescher, another decent short track racer. He's not great, but he's starting 30th, so we've got a ton of place differential here. His practice speeds were a little bit better than Brad Keselowski's. His teammate, he 14th in single lap in the first grouping. Now there's 20 guys in that group, so he was 14th out of 20th. So kind of middle of the pack, but starting in 30th with a 14.2 average finish, I think Chris Buescher definitely is one of the better place differential plays, and it's somebody who I've definitely targeted. Tyler Reddick, like I said earlier, he is not very good at these short tracks, and until he starts to show improvement, starting 19th, I'm not sure he finishes any better there. It potentially probably is worse. He's got a 24th place average finish and only 2 top 20s in his last 5 starts. Ross Chastain, next in line here, the Hail Melon. I'm sure we'll see it 15 times on TV again. $8,300, starting 12th. He was 17th in the second practice session, so the faster practice session, and he was 17th out of 20th. And 32nd on 20-lap consecutive average. So not great speeds from Ross Chastain in practice. He does typically end up finishing fairly well here with a 12.8 average finish. I'm not sure we get much more out of Ross today. I think, a top 15, might flirt with a top 10, but I don't think so. I don't see it today for Ross Chastain. Kyle Busch, oh my gosh, Kyle Busch has been struggling. He ended up pulling a decent qualifying lap off, but it was also, he was the last car of the second round to go in qualifying, and the track was a little bit cooler, so it was a little bit faster. I don't think it's indicative on any type of speed that Kyle Busch has. I think he's still struggling. I think he's still struggling with this car. He's not the biggest fan of Martinsville. He does have 2 wins here, but he has definitely struggled here at Martinsville compared to other tracks. Alex Bowman, who does have a win here and does like Martinsville, was 4th in single lap practice in the first grouping and stayed very fast all through practice, 4th on his 20-lap consecutive average. He's got a 14th place average finish. And Alex Bowman's been running much better since COTA. He ran pretty well last week at Richmond. He had a couple of pit road issues. But other than that, Alex Bowman was running up in the top 10 most of that race, and I expect something similar out of that from Alex today. Bubba Wallace, 7,700, starting second. Now, I get it. He runs Martinsville fairly well. Like I said, he's got the win in the truck race. 14th place average finish. I don't know how much I really, really like the Bubba Wallace play today. It just scares me starting in second. He is good here. He did run Richmond very well last week. Ended up fading there on the last restart, but after he got into Kyle Larson, not my favorite person right now. But I don't love the starting spot for Bubba Wallace. Chase Briscoe next in line here at 7,500, starting 5th. He was 12th in single lap on the first one, but he did improve to 1st in 20-lap consecutive average, so he's got some good long-run speed. He does a 10th place average finish here at Martinsville. Out of his 6 starts, he's got 5 of them in the top 24 in the top 10. He's finished twice in the top 5. Had a 4th place finish last year with this same tire kind of setup. So I think Chase Briscoe could easily sit there and hold somewhere in the top 10. Can he stay in the top 5? I mean, definitely potential. I've got some usage on him, 15 to 20% for somebody starting so far up. Same thing with Josh Berry. Josh Berry runs Martinsville very well. This is how he cut his teeth in late model stocks on tracks like Martinsville and short tracks all throughout the Southeast. I expect him to run just like he did last weekend, very well. I don't know if he finishes much better than 7th, but at 7,400, there's enough value here. If he can just hold and finish in the top 10, he definitely could be somebody that we would want to target. Ryan Preece, who was our pole sitter last spring, and the only reason he ended up having a kind of a bad day was he sped on pit road. And ended up having to go to the tail end, and you just can't ever make up the positions. I mean, we saw Ryan Preece almost go a lap down, almost Joey Logano go almost a lap down, and Joey Logano ended up finishing 2nd, but because of pit strategies. If you're at the back, it's just so hard to get anywhere forward. Noah Gragson, 7,100, starting 26th. I think we got maybe some decent place differential. He's been running much better in that 10 car, so definitely keep an eye on Noah Gragson. Daniel Suarez, 6,900, starting 21st. His practice speeds were not great. He doesn't run this track very well. He's not great at the short track packages, so I have faded off of Daniel Suarez. Austin Dillon, new crew chief or old crew chief, but coming back. I expect Austin Dillon maybe to have a decent day today. Starting 28th, we've got some place differential potential here with Austin Dillon. He's good. He's somebody that at 6,800 should provide good value, and somebody I'm definitely targeting. Eric Jones is somebody else that we can kind of target too. I think he might be starting a tick further up than I would like. I think he kind of might finish where he starts type of thing, but at 6,600, it does allow you to start to afford some of the top guys like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and those. Same thing with John Hunter Nemechek. No, not a whole lot of experience here, especially in the next-gen car, but did win the Xfinity race last year. 6,500 starting in 29th. He knows how to get around here. If you can just figure out the handling and the gear shifting in this car, I think he has a good shot at potentially a top 20, if not a top 15. Definitely somebody at 6,500 we can definitely keep an eye on and target. Austin Cindric, I think Austin Cindric is starting just a little bit too far up, starting in 14th, and he's got a 20th place average finish over his last 4 starts, and he's got only one top 5. So I've faded off of Austin Cindric a little bit this week, as I do most weeks. But Michael McDowell next in line here at 6,300, starting 35th. His practice speeds were abysmal at 30th and 31st. He was in the second group, so a little bit slower. He's got a 12.6 average finish here. Starting 35th, though, we've got a ton of place differential opportunity with Michael McDowell. He's looking to right the ship. He's had a couple of really bad weeks, and all he needs to do is just kind of hold on, stay on the lead lap, and get himself a top 20, and that's going to be all we need for DraftKings. Todd Gillen next in line here, his teammate, 6,200, starting in 6th. Great speed from Todd Gillen in practice and in qualifying. Now his average finish here is 19.5, but it did have a 10th place finish here in the fall of last year. I think Todd Gillen is just starting too far up for my liking. I think he potentially has a top 15 speed run car, but there's going to be a lot of guys that are fighting for that spot. And, the part that I don't trust is Todd Gillen's pit crew to keep him in that spot. I don't think he's got the pit crew to hang with Denny Hamlin and the Hendricks and the Gibbs. So I think that's where, if anything, that's where Todd Gillen's going to fade. I don't think it's going to be his ability on the track. It's going to be pit road. It's going to be his big issue. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at $6,000, starting 23rd. I don't think we get much more out of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's got a 19.2 average finish. His practice speeds were kind of in that same ballpark. He was 31st in that second group. So the slower group, I just don't think you get much more unless we get some type of weird carnage, which we just haven't seen at Martinsville in the last few years. Carson Hocevar, 5,900, starting 25th. I don't know what to do with Carson Hocevar. I mean, we've only got one start, but he was 31st. It was that fall race last year. He had some struggles on pit road, if I remember correctly. I've got some ownership because, I mean, to afford the guys up top, you got to have some of these cheaper guys. And I think it's just a luck of the lottery back here. Anything from here on is it's a luck of the draw. Any of them have the capability of potentially staying on the lead lap, and if they can just stay on the lead lap or stay within one, then they could probably end up with a top 25, top 20 day, and at $6,000 or less, that's kind of what we're looking for. Corey LaJoie, who was absolutely lights out fast, but he was the first car on the track, so it was clean track. He did hold his speed fairly well through the 20-lap consecutive average. He was still fifth. Did fall off late in a run, but he just missed qualifying completely. They really screwed his air pressures up on his tires, so I think that really, really hurt his qualifying speed. I think Corey LaJoie is a great one to definitely target. Now, do I think Corey LaJoie is going to go get a top 10? No, but I don't need Corey LaJoie to do that. I need Corey LaJoie to get a top 20, stay close or on the lead lap most of the day, and get a decent finish at 5,800 is good value. Zane Smith, I think, is qualifying a little too far up. He's only got one race here in the past where he had a 34th place finish. 5,600, I mean, I just don't like his starting spot. I don't think there's a whole lot of room. I do have some ownership. Like I said, it's just kind of a lottery back here. One of these guys is gonna end up making the lineup. I don't think it's all going to be squished in the the 7,000 to 9,000 range. I think it's going to be a couple of the guys that we expect to be running up front, and a couple of these guys on the back who just happen to either get lucky with pit strategy or end up just missing maybe potential carnage. So, I mean, Justin Haley starting in 27th. He's got a 29.6 average finish. He finished 30th last year in this race. He and his teammate Kaz Grala both did not go through inspection well, so they lost a crew member and a chief engineer. Not a big deal, really, other than losing one pit crew member, which could slow their pit stops down a little bit. So, starting 27th, stay close to the front. I've faded off of Justin Haley on the lottery, but I did put some Harrison Burton in. Harrison Burton's just down the road here in Emporia, South Boston area. South Boston, the Sadlers are in Emporia. Harrison Burton is from South Boston, so I mean, literally about an hour and so odd from Martinsville. 5,400, starting 34th. Ton of place differential here. He's got a 20.5 average finish. This is one of Harrison Burton's better tracks. I have a decent amount of ownership for Harrison Burton, even though I still think it is kind of a lottery pick. Kaz Grala, I mean, you could put him in as a lottery pick. We don't have experience here. He was not very fast in practice, didn't do a 20-lap consecutive average, so we don't really know what kind of speed Kaz Grala's got. And starting in 50, and starting 35th. So, I mean, only kind of one place to go is up. I mean, I guess you could go behind David Starr, but Daniel Hemrick next in line here, 34th. We don't have much of a history here other than before the last 5 races, he's got a 22nd place average finish. So maybe potentially, but Colleague has really been struggling lately. I don't know what is going on at Colleague. I mean, speaking of Colleague, I mean, literally the two almost the cheapest cars are Colleagues. I mean, they're down in Rick Ware categories at this point. But Josh Williams starting 33rd, 5,100. Josh had a good run last night. Doesn't have any experience here in the Cup Series. Can he just stay close to the lead lap, maybe one lap down, get, 21st place, 22nd, 23rd, 24th place finish at 5,100. That's all we really need. David Starr, I have absolutely no interest in at $5,000. He was slowest in practice, didn't do a 10-lap consecutive average, no interest there. Guys that I really like to be potential dominators, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Joey Logano are all potential dominators. Christopher Bell is a great target for place differential, along with Chris Buescher, William Byron. I don't like the Tyler Reddick as a place differential. Ryan Preece, maybe a John Hunter as a kind of that lottery pick. Noah Gragson maybe as that lottery pick. You're going to need one or two of these lottery picks to pay off. But either way, I'm going to wrap this video up. Good luck this weekend. Sorry about not being able to go live. Just lack of internet and time, I think, was the biggest thing. Either way, good luck. Have a great weekend. See you soon.